Welcome, everyone. My name is Ankur Patel, Director of Advancement for Hindu University of America. Today's webinar is an introduction to the Dasha-Shanti-Mantras. We've got Dr. Swaminathan on board already, but Kalyanji, President of HUA. In the background, we had some of the Dasha-Shanti-Mantras going. I think Kalyanji wants to say a few words, and then I'll give our panelists an introduction. Kalyanji.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Swaminathan, are you here? Can you turn on your video by any chance so we can see you? I would like to pose a question to the audience here in general, okay? And the question is, as follows. Do you chant Sanskrit mantras? Do you chant Sanskrit mantras ever? That's the question, okay? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, very nice. Yes, okay. You can say no too. Every day, okay. The background is drowning out my voice. Really? What's in the background?
Nope, here. Sounds fine to me, Kalyanji.
Okay, all right.
It was from before.
Okay, so here is a second question, okay, to all of you. Do you understand the meaning of the mantras that you chant? That's the second question, okay? Do you understand the mantras? Yes and no, okay? A few, some of the times. Mostly yes, all right? Yes and no. Not at all, not all. Okay. Okay, very good. Great. So I think Dr. Swaminathan is here. I want to make sure he can hear us and we can hear him. Hello, sir. Namaste.
Yeah, namaskar. How are you all? So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very good. Great.
So let me give Dr. Swaminathan an introduction, and we can get into it on our introduction to the Dasha-Shanti-Mantras. So Dr. Swaminathan has worked at Bell Laboratories for 21 years in fiber optic technologies. He has over 160 publications in peer-reviewed journals, co-authored and edited 4 different books. He's got 8 patents. Dr. Swaminathan has been a student of Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati and the other revered acharyas of the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam for almost 30 years. He collected 365 quotes of Pujya Swamiji and published them as Day After Day with Swami Dayananda Saraswati. In addition, he edited 2 booklets, Satyam and Mithya, and What You Love is the Pleased Self. Those are based on Pujya Swamiji's talks. He's also an ardent devotee of Kanchi Brahmacharya and has penned articles on Periyava's inimitable style of inquiry of the Shastras. I'm still working on my pronunciation. I apologize. Kalyanji, to you, if you have more context, or to Dr. Swaminathan.
Okay. Wonderful. Very good. Great. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I wanted to just acknowledge all the participants. We have about 130 odd participants in the webinar today. We welcome all of you to this webinar. So, today we are trying something different, which is we are actually launching a course that is going to get into the mantras and their meanings. And to do that, Dr. V. Swaminathan has kindly consented to teach that course. And before we get into the subject matter of the Dasha-Shanti-Mantras, I want to invite Dr. Swaminathan to introduce himself, and perhaps share a little bit biographically as to your own journey and how you, got into learning the mantras, the meanings, the Sanskrit, and your personal spiritual journey. Very briefly, I think that will be very helpful for our audience to begin with. Over to you, sir.
Okay. I can share the screen.
I believe you can.
Okay. Okay. You all can see it, I suppose.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So greetings, namaskarams to all of you. So I'll start with a prayer, then go from there. Om Gananahan Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamasravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrunvan Utibeshrita Sadhanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Shruti Shruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pade Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vante Bhagavantav Punah Punah Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheta Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Sadasiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Priyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Mukam karoti vachalam Pangum langhete girim Yat kripa tamaham bhande Paramananda madhavam Yat kripa tamaham bhande Shri Dayananda Sadgurum Yat kripa tamaham bhande Sadgurum Chandrashekharam. So thank you all for joining this webinar, and thank you Kalyan Ramanji and Kalyanji and Ankur for introducing me and giving me this opportunity to talk about this subject matter of the class. And also he said I should say a few words about me. I will be very brief. I came into the under the guidance of Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati in the late 90s. It was serendipitously, it happened. And then in due course, I learned a lot about him as a great teacher and started looking at the Gita, Bhagavad Gita home study program that Swamiji had developed, which led me into the inquiry of the Upanishads under his guidance. Attended many of his courses and classes in the Arshavidya Gurukulam at Saylorsburg, in Coimbatore, his Gurukulam in Rishikesh, and so on. So that many years of association with the reverential Swamiji and the other acharyas of the Arshavidya Gurukulam, who are all students of Pujya Swamiji, it embellished my spiritual learning and spiritual journey, if you will. Then with his advice and the other Acharya's advice and guidance, I started teaching, and that then opened up more avenues to when you have to express yourself of what you know, then you find that you are in a position to learn more. So that has been my journey for the last 3 decades or so. And all that started, I would say, because of my devotion, love for Kanchi Paramacharya. And in the family, my father-in-law was a great devotee. He was a Mudradhikari of the Kanchi Mutt. So learning is writings. Paramacharya, you don't learn one-on-one, but you learn through his pravachanams and writings. And that blessing, I think, I believe very seriously, led me to Swami Dayananda. And Swami Dayananda's blessings continues. So with that, if okay with Kalyan, I will introduce the subject matter on the Dasha-Shanti-Mantras. When you learn the Upanishads, Upanishad is what we say Vedanta. Vedanta, it means at the end of the Vedas. It's Anta means an end. So it's a positional name. But of course, when you say at the end, what is something, if you say what is at the end, you say something like that. If you ask, then the end also means what is conclusively what is said in the Vedas. So Vedanta, although a positional name, because it is at the end of the Vedas, it also means what is the purport? What does the Veda really convey? And so that Vedanta is also known by the term the Upanishads. So someone who is interested in understanding the purport of the Vedas, namely the Vedanta Shastra, which incidentally happens to be also the inquiry about the nature of oneself, inquiry about the reality of the universe or the Jagat one confronts, and also the reality of a causal factor, because the universe that one confronts seems to be an universe of intelligence. It's an awareful intelligence, as a physicist called. So that awareful intelligence has to have an intelligent cause. So the inquiry into the reality of these three, the individual, the Jagat that the individual confronts, and the causal factor, that also come under the jurisdiction of Vedanta Shastra. Really speaking, the study of the Vedanta Shastra is only that is understanding realities. So in that sense, it could be described as a pursuit of the science of realities. There are 10 Upanishads. Of course, every Veda, there are 4 Vedas, as you all know: Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharva. And in the Yajus, we have the 2 branches, Krishna Yajur and Shukla Yajuriti. Every Veda has at the end many Upanishads, and there are some in the middle sections of the Vedas also. And according to some number, it's more than 1,000 Upanishads, but many of them have been lost because we have lost many of the shakas, that is the recensions of the Vedas, have been lost to in history. So therefore, now they say there are something like 108 Upanishads and so on. But of them, 10 of them are the ones that are studied, because they are studied in the sense there is a commentary for them by Adi Shankara. So in the tradition of Vedantic Shastric study, you study these 10 Upanishads. And there is a statement which describes the names of these 10 Upanishads. Isha Kena Kata Prashna Mundaka Mandukya Taittiriya Aitareyam Cha Chandokyam Brahadaranyakam Tatha. These are all the names of the 10 Upanishads. Isha Upanishad, Keno Upanishad, Ityadi. So you study these 10 Upanishads. These Upanishads come from different Vedas. For example, the Rig Veda has the Aitareya Upanishad. Shukla Yajur Veda is one section, one of the Yajur Vedas. You have the Ishavasya Upanishad, a very famous Upanishad, and it is said to be a favorite of Mahatma Gandhiji. Then Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. In the Krishna Yajur Veda, you have Kathopanishad and the Taittiriya Upanishad. And there is another Upanishad which is outside of the 10, and yet is an important Upanishad because it is quoted very often in the commentaries. It's called Svetasvatara Upanishad. Samaveda has Keno Upanishad and Chandogya Upanishad. Then the Atharva Veda has Prashna Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, and Mandukya Upanishad. So when you study this Upanishad, you begin the study with a prayer. And the prayer is what we say, a Shanti Mantra. The Shanti Mantras come from the different Vedas. They are Vedic mantras. So you can say Vedic Dasha-Shanti-Mantras. There are 10 of them, 10 invocatory verses. And you recite them before the commencement of the classes. For example, the Rig Veda, there are 2 of the Shanti Mantras pertaining to the Rig Vedic mantras, 1 from the Shukla Yajur Veda, 5 from the Krishna Yajur Veda, seems to be very popular. Samaveda has 1, Atharva Veda has 1. So you have these 10 total Shanti Mantras. So when a particular Upanishad is studied, suppose if you are studying, say, Prashna Upanishad, then you will recite the Shanti Mantra from the Atharva Veda before the beginning of that class. So that is how this tradition is preserved even today. When you go in a traditional setting in India, for example, and when you are studying these Upanishads, it is customary to chant all the 10 Shanti Mantras, even though you may be studying one particular Upanishad. So when a particular Upanishad is studied, then the Shanti Mantra of the Veda is studied. So that is also part of a study program. But generally, traditionally, no matter what Upanishad you are studying, you recite all the 10 Shanti Mantras before the commencement of the class. And also when the class is ended, by the Acharya finishes the teaching, an hour, hour and a half or whatever, then the students again recite all the 10 Shanti Mantras. What is happening here? Okay. I don't know, I pressed something, it says starting subtitle. So before, let me come out of here and then go back again. Sorry about this. I don't know, I can't do anything about it. So just me leave it. The introduction to the Shanti Mantras is the subject matter for this class. And the Shanti Mantras, since they are very important, in addition to writing the commentary to the Upanishad, Adi Shankara, roughly belonging to the 8th century Common Era, the time of Adi Shankara is not well ascertained, and there are debates about it. In the purist the traditionalist will say he is before the Common Era. Anyway, we don't need to get into that. He has also written the commentaries for the Shanti Mantras. That is very astonishing because he looks at them as a very important set of, or important aspect of studying the Upanishad. And many cases, they serve as a nice introduction to the subject matter that is going to follow. Then, in addition to Shankara's commentary, the whole Veda, all the 4 Vedas have been commented upon by Sayanacharya. These pictures are all caricatures, not actual pictures, of course. Belonging to the 14th century, his brother is the well-known Sri Vidyaranya Swami of the on the Sringeri Mutt. Sayanacharya also was an Acharya of the Sringeri Mutt. And Sayanacharya, either himself or with the collaboration with his brother, written a commentary on the whole Vedas. And therefore, in doing that, these Vaidika Shanti Mantras are also commented upon by Sayanacharya. So this is referred to as Shayana Bhashyam, and this is called Shankara Bhashyam. And many other secondary commentaries are also there for the Shanti Mantras, from which one can glean the entire meaning of the Shanti Mantras, the enriched meanings of the Shanti Mantras. In this course, the objective is to learn these 10 Dasha-Shanti-Mantras and their detailed meanings with the commentaries. And in that way, one will gain an exposure to the study of the Bhashyam. Bhashyam means a commentary. So how that Bhashyam style, one gets used to it. And then hopefully one will be able to develop a plan for a structured study of the Upanishads. The pursuit of Vedanta Shastra, this inquiry of the science of realities, as I was saying, has to follow a structured program. It can't be haphazard and random. A very systematic pursuit is required. And the Shastra also lays out a plan, how one approaches this and how one should design a program, a self-study or a study with the guidance of a teacher, preferably with the guidance of a teacher, how the structured program should be developed in order to fully understand the Vedanta Shastra. So just briefly about the course material, the class notes and other sources available on the internet, I will point out. There is no required elective as such, but a prerequisite perhaps would be some exposure to the Vedanta Shastra in terms of the nomenclature, the terminologies, and also the ability to read Sanskrit, because we are going to be using Sanskrit commentaries. And I will try to provide the transliteration so that people who cannot read the Devanagari script can at least follow the transliteration. So that way you get a comfort factor in studying the Sanskrit commentaries. The classes will be 90 minutes duration and consisting of, say, 75 minutes of lecture and some time for 15 minutes or so for question and answers pertaining to the subject matter discussed. And I hope there will be enough classroom participation, because then that makes the discussion interesting. The resources for this class, there is a small booklet which was published a while ago, a couple of years ago, Vaidika Shanti-Mantraha, along with the commentary, Shankara Bhashyam, also the Shayana Bhashya, the 2 commentaries I mentioned, and also other commentaries. And this book should be available at the Arshavidya Gurukulam bookstore, and that can be obtained from there. But if not, I will give the, as I teach in the class, the respective mantras and the commentaries, I will put it on a PowerPoint slide. And so that way also you will have it, which will have both the Sanskrit and the transliteration. There is also a book with the title Purna Vidya, it is a teaching program for children. Nevertheless, in that book, with the section called Puja and Prayers, all these 10 Shanti Mantras are collected, and their meaning in English, the Sanskrit transliteration, word by word meaning, and the English translation of the mantras are also given. This also can be purchased from the Harshavidya bookstore, who could serve as a reference, very nice reference book. Somebody introduced me and said some of the books that I participated in, so that's that information. So my background is here, which is already talked about. So let me come to make a few more points. I already said Vedanta means Upanishad, and Upanishad means self-knowledge. And you can also say it is the inquiry of the realities of oneself, the Jagat one confronts, and the causal factor. In the tradition, the pursuit of this, the Vedanta Shastra, it consists of studying what is known as Prasthanatrayi. Prasthanatrayi means three. Prasthana literally means a road, especially a road on which a king travels. Prasthana, Raja Prasthana. But Prasthana, in this context, when you go and take a dip in a river, like this is a picture of a Ganges, you have what are known as the ghattas. The ghattas are the approaches to go to the river to take a dip. Without the ghattas, it is very hard to, especially in places other than the popular places like Haridwar, it's not that easy to go to the river Ganga. You have to have a ghat or ghatta, to reach that. There should be a pathway to access that water if you want to take a dip in Ganga. If you imagine the entire Shastra as the Ganga, it is figuratively, allegorically said to be Ganga, because Ganga, the river, stands for knowledge, Jnana Ganga. So if you want to take a dip in that river of knowledge, you have to have a ghat, a ghatta, or a pathway to reach that river. And that ghat is called prasthana. It is the approach. It facilitates an approach to the study of the Vedanta Shastra, or facilitates an approach to the river of knowledge so that you can take a dip in it in an allegorical manner. And there are three such ghats or prasthana. That's why it's called prasthana trayi. One is called the Shruti Prasthana. Shruti stands for Veda here. Shruti Prasthana means the Upanishad. You have to study the Upanishads. That is the principal source of information. Then what is known as Smriti Prasthana, like the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Krishna to Arjuna, which is a subset or a beautiful condensed version of the entire Vedas. So the entire Vedas, umpteen number of slokas and whatever, are condensed into 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is also considered like an Upanishad. In fact, many people would say, many scholars would consider, Acharyas would say Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, because it is just the condensed form of all the Upanishadic knowledge. So that is the second prasthana, called the Smriti Prasthana. Then there is a third prasthana called Nyaya Prasthana. Nyaya here means logic or reasoning, and that is the Brahma Sutra. Vyasa Maharishi, he of course collated all the Vedas, the four Vedas, and he wanted to present in sutra form. Sutra means abhorisms. Abhorisms means condensed two-liners. And of the entire, again, the Upanishad doctrines, he wanted to present in as aphorisms or sutras. There are some 500 plus sutras. And the sutras, although very terse, they are commented upon by Shankara in a very elaborate manner, giving all the reasoning behind the understanding of these Vedic mantras. So that constitutes what is known as the Nyaya Prasthana. So therefore, generally one will study in a traditional way these three, Shruti Prasthana, namely the Upanishad, Smriti Prasthana, namely Bhagavad Gita, and Nyaya Prasthana, the Brahma Sutra. When Pujya Swamiji designed his Vedanta courses in the various ashrams, he created a curriculum which will involve the study of these three Prasthana three. Now, where does the Shanti mantras come, in what context they are important? So Shanti Patha, that is the recitation of the Shanti mantras, are primarily for these purposes. And the number one is to remove the obstacles in the way of the pursuit, which will stand in the way of the pursuit. The three obstacles, there are three such obstacles which are called Adhyatmika Pratibandha. Pratibandha means an obstacle, some abstraction which prevents the inquiry. That Pratibandha can be centered on oneself. It's called Adhyatmika. It can be caused by the external environment, so then it is called Adi Bhautika. Then there are things which are unknown, which are beyond one's control. Then they are called Adi Daivika Pratibandhas. For example, if you want to go to a class, maybe that day you catch a cold, you have a headache, or some friend you haven't seen long time suddenly pops in. Something like this centered on oneself. Any personal illness or whatever prevents the inquiry, prevents you from going to the class. So that is called Adhyatmika Pratibandha. Sometimes the surroundings may not be very conducive. You might want to study, but then in a place where you are, especially in India, which is very crowded and multi-apartments, multi-dwelling, there could be other people who would have their loudspeakers very loud, putting some music, which may be disturbing your study. So that is called Adi Bhautikam, external sources. Then there could be natural disasters like snow or what happened in Texas recently, that kind of thing. Adi Bhautika Pratibandhas. Adi Daivika Pratibandhas, excuse me. So therefore, to ward off these obstacles which may come in one's way in the pursuit, you recite the Shanti mantra. That is the reason for saying the Shanti 3 times. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi iti. You recite. In the beginning, also in the conclusion, is mainly to prevent these obstacles from coming in your way in the pursuit of knowledge. Then the mantras also recited, you pray for the well-being of not only you, the student, but also the teacher. Both of you should work in harmony. There cannot be any disputes or any misunderstanding that could come between the teacher and the student, which will prevent the absorption in the class. Prayer for a firm resolve and commitment to learning. So sometimes it could be like a New Year's resolve. I want to lose 20 pounds. You make a resolve on the first day of the new year, but then how far I stay with that kind of a resolve. So that could be wavering. Things could be, other priorities may pop in, whatever, and time management may become difficult, etc., etc. So therefore, there has to be a very firm resolve and commitment and love to learn. So that a prayer is also for that. Then so much information has to be absorbed and also retained in the mind not only retention is enough, you should be able to recollect when you need it. Any recollection of the past material that you have learned should come at the appropriate time. So therefore, that is called Medha Shakti. Medha stands for both collecting the information and also retaining that information. You can't just keep forgetting what you learned in the previous class. Then every class will look fresh. You don't understand what in the new class because everything from the previous class is forgotten. Continuity is missed and so on. So you pray for Medha Shakti. Then the prayers also have an inherent beauty. You pray for a symbiotic life, a life which is in harmony with the surroundings. In other words, there has to be symbiosis between the microcosm and the macrocosm. There has to be certain balance, an ecological balance, if you will. So therefore, the Shanti Pataha serves all these purposes together. It wards off the obstacles, the threefold obstacles. It assures the well-being of both the student and the teacher. It gives the resolve and commitment to the student in learning, helps the student to absorb and retain what is taught, and also develops a better person, if you will, improves the quality of life, where one lives in cognition of the surroundings and lives in a harmonious situation, balancing the micro and the macro. So the Shanti Mantras provide all this, and in addition to that, it of course leads the way to the study of the inquiry of the Vedanta Sastra. So this is how the class is designed, and so I will be happy to answer a few questions. So I will conclude my presentation with the Shanti Mantra, then we will take up the questions. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu Krishnarpanamastu. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or any other comment, whatever.
Thank you. Thank you. So please put your questions in the Q&A box so it's easy for us to go through them. Otherwise, if it's in the chat, it becomes a little bit difficult. We will make this replay available to anyone who completes the survey, which you will receive shortly. And we'll put the links to the course in the chat. And please, let's get questions going and answer them. Kalyanji, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up before we get to the questions?
Yeah, I'd like to maybe answer some couple quick questions. How long is the course? Well, the course is about 11 weeks long, 10, 11 weeks long. Starts in the second week of April, will go till the third week of June, meet once a week. Ankur will paste the link for the course in the chat box. You can click on it and take a look at it. Now, Swaminathan-ji, I want to direct a question towards you.
Okay.
So in fact, there is a question in the chat window itself. Will the students be learning how to chant the mantras in the class, in your class?
Yeah, that's a good question. See, generally, the chanting part is learned separately, generally. And then, of course, when we come to the meaning of the mantras, then you just focus on the meaning. And the learning to chant is a specialty. So I'm not planning to do that purposely in the class, because then that will become a program by itself. Perhaps later on we need to consider that maybe just the chanting part. However, what I could do is make it available for you. I found something in the, some of the teachers use this Dasha-Shanti-Mantras, so there are some YouTubers available. But I will chant the mantras in the class, and we can also make you chant. But I can't say that you will become adept in the chanting, because this chanting is a nuance that one has to learn, like you learn the meaning of the mantras. So that is how I plan to do this. So we will chant, but that doesn't become the main purpose of the class.
Yeah. Okay. So great. So here is a question: is this course part of the MA degree? No, this is not part of the MA degree. This is a course that is part of the continuing education program. It's offered as a service to our community and anybody who's interested in just learning about the specifically in this particular course, the meaning of the mantras. So here's a question: will there be exams at the end to evaluate the learning?
Yeah. Not really. You see, let me put it this way. The way I look at this, it's just my personal opinion. So the way I look at this, and many traditional acharyas also will have the same view, that it's not it's not one for evaluation. You see what I'm saying? Self-knowledge is something that you are. I'm learning self-knowledge means I need to be the evaluator. It is not subject to someone else's evaluation. So I have to gauge, reflect upon what is taught in the classes, and then understand, assimilate the meaning. And what is more important is then harmonize the life, one's life, in commensuration with what is learned. So that is the one that I talked about in the last purpose of the Shanti Mantra, the symbiotic life. So that is one's own evaluation. So I don't plan to do, I won't give you any exam and multiple choices, essay writing, nothing of that sort. But definitely you are welcome to ask questions, and also you are welcome to share your understanding, not for any evaluation, but so that we can have a discussion, a dialogue, how things are communicated.
So great. So here's another question: what if I don't know Sanskrit at all, and I cannot read Devanagari script either? Can I still take this class?
You can, I would say you should take the class. Even if you are not familiar with the Devanagari portion, hopefully you can read or follow the transliteration. The teaching will be in English, even though the commentaries that I use are all in Sanskrit, but the teaching will be in English. And I will normally try to make the best effort to communicate the gist of everything in English. So hopefully you will benefit from that. So I would say you try it. I can't say how it will be, but you have to try it and see.
Okay, great. So here is another question. Someone's asking, is there a specific mantra for strengthening the Meda Shakti?
One of the Shanti mantras is that, and when I teach that, I will talk about others. Yes.
Okay. Here is another question. How important is it to be able to recite and recall shlokas and their nomenclature in the pursuit of a Vedic life?
You see, again, as I was saying, to answer another question about exams, it is your own, it's you. Vedanta means life. Vedanta is you. It is talking about you. Then you have to set the bar. You see what I'm saying? Nobody is going to set the bar. I'm not going to give you an answer. Yes, you have to memorize all the 10 Shanti mantras, etc., etc. It is, the bar is set by you. What that means is each one has different grades of capacity, whatever abilities and so on. So let's not go into that. What is more important is I learn a mantra. Simple, take this, even simple, this reciting the Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti. In the end, we will see that when we pronounce that, the Dirgha Swarita, that Anudata, Udata, Anudata, Swarita, so that that Swarita is not there in the last when I said, but it is there in the first time, like Om Shanti, 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 I go up. That is first time. But in the end conclusion, Om Shanti, 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 there's no going up. Right? That Swarita, that Swara doesn't go up. So even take a simple chant like this. Don't, you chant it, learn to chant it. Om Shantish, not Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. That Shantish, because there is a Visarga, either you can say Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi iti, or you do the Sandhi, the conjunction, Om Shantish, Shantish, Shantihi iti. Say that correctly, but as you say, reflect upon the meaning. That is more important than whether you memorize or all that. Hope that was helpful.
Okay, wonderful. I'll take the next question. Is there a program to learn Sanskrit along with the class? Okay, so now, yes, not along with this class, but we have an entire area of study called Sanskrit studies, and we want to encourage everybody to learn Sanskrit, obviously. So we are in fact starting two sequences of courses in the next quarter, the spring quarter on Sanskrit. One is a very basic level of Sanskrit. It assumes that you have zero knowledge in Sanskrit. You don't know the script, you don't know the pronunciation, absolutely no prior background required. Then you can enter this 4-quarter sequence. Okay, so it's actually it's called Beginning Sanskrit series that goes for 4 quarters. And at the end of the 4 quarters, you'll have an adequate level of proficiency to enter a slightly more advanced level of Sanskrit. And we have another 8-quarter sequence for Sanskrit, which takes you all the way to the level of proficiency that's required to read, speak, write, comprehend, converse in Sanskrit itself. So in other words, we're committed to a level of proficiency in Sanskrit that allows you to not only read and understand yourself without any intervention or any translation from anybody, but also engage with each other in conversations, conversational Sanskrit. Okay, so all of that is packed into that 8-quarter sequence. So you can engage, have simple conversations back and forth in Sanskrit. We also have another 8-quarter sequence we are starting in the spring quarter, which is called Learn Sanskrit Through the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so this sequence, it tries to introduce the nuances of the language through the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So you're simultaneously going to be engaging with Sanskrit as a language, but also the text of the Bhagavad Gita. And, it's an 8-quarter sequence, and you're going to cover the entire 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita in 8 quarters. And in that period, you will acquire an adequate level of Sanskrit proficiency so that, you can go and start doing more advanced level research and study of Sanskrit. Okay, So that's for the question on the Sanskrit. Now, to take this course, is there any background on Upanishads or Brahma Sutras that is required? Will you be assuming any background?
No, not necessary.
necessary.
No background is required of those, the actual Upanishads and so on, because the Shanti Mantras themselves, many of them, will give the purport of the Upanishads. Not only the one that you are going to study, I mean, going to study means the Upanishad that follows after the Shanti Mantra, but also the overall Upanishadic doctrines, if you will. So you don't need to have any prior background of the Prasthana 3, as I said, but just the Shanti Mantras themselves will be a learning by itself.
Yeah, okay, great. So here is a question on the Upanishads commentaries on the Vedas. The question is not clearly phrased, but I'm going to ask it this way. Are they separate entities by themselves, the Upanishad commentaries? The answer is yes, of course.
Yeah, the Upanishad commentaries by Shankaracharya are then later on Ramanujacharya, etc. They are all separate. Upanishad commentaries are separate. Then Shayanacharya gave the commentary for the whole Veda. That's called Veda Bhashyam. This is Shankara's Bhashya or Upanishad Bhashyam.
Yeah. Okay, so here is a question. Prayer is for you, not for God. Prayer has to be total, unconditional, etc. Is it not? So that's the question.
I'm not, can you say
Yeah,
the
so
question?
let me answer this. Yes, prayer is for you, meaning, for the person praying, in our system of thought, definitely prayer is for the individual, not for God, really. We don't believe that God is, or Brahman or whoever that is not looking for your prayer, really. Okay, will the course count towards a certificate? Bill Fairchild is asking. Yes. See, so here I want to make a distinction. We've announced so far a certificate program in Hindu studies, which is an 18 credit hour program of study. And this course will count towards that certificate. To earn a certificate, you just have to accumulate 18 credit hours across the board. Any courses that HO is offering, you can pick up. Maybe a couple of foundation level courses will be required, but most of them are electives, and we'll definitely count this towards a certificate. Now, we also we are going to launch a graduate certificate in Hindu studies. Now, for that, all the courses will have to be at the graduate level, so this will not count for that. So there's a slight distinction between a graduate level course and a continuing education course. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Okay, let me look at another question here.
Can I share the poll, Kalyanji, just to see
Yeah,
what
sure.
interest people have?
Yeah, terrific. So here, Ankur is going to share a poll for you to fill out. Please take a minute and fill out the poll. Okay, I request everybody to fill it out. Answer maybe no, answer maybe yes, whatever it is. Just kindly just respond to the poll. Okay, all of you.
So I saw a couple people ask, will course recordings be available? Yes, they will through our learning management system. You'll get an @hua.edu email address. Everything is accessible online, but we encourage you to participate live in the course so that you can have the back and forth, so you can engage in the conversation and really benefit from a classroom setting in this virtual sense. And it's been one of the best experiences that I've had with HUA, seeing a diverse group of Hindus from around the world sometimes engaging in a subject that you care about. This is part of the mission that Hindu University of America is on, and we're glad that you're a part of it. And please do consider enrolling in this course and in some of our other courses.
Okay, so we've got about 54% of the participants who have responded. I do invite everybody to respond. kindly, please. Even if you just want to say no, you're not interested, that's totally fine. Please do respond, okay? All right, so here's a question from an anonymous attendee. Usually I do not take questions from anonymous attendees, okay? Obviously, for some reason you want to be anonymous. But here is, there are so many prayers that our parents and acharyas have asked us to chant daily. In my childhood, I used to listen to the Bhaja Govindam. But I did not hear much about the Dasha-Shanti-Mantras. My question is, why is this Dasha-Shanti-Mantras considered so important?
These mantras are for the study of the Vedanta Shastra.
Yeah.
These are Vedic Dasha-Shanti-Mantras. People who are interested in studying the Upanishads and so on. And so that's how these are of a different category. And of course, the simple prayers, simple slokas or whatever that parents teach to children for a general lifestyle. But here there is a student who wants to pursue deeply into the meaning of the Upanishads and so on, then these Shanti Mantras are the ones that are recited.
Okay, wonderful. Will this class be available in the following quarter or just for the next quarter? Well, as let me answer that. We've announced it for the spring quarter. We haven't really explored future courses. If Dr. Swaminathan has a good experience with the class, he might consider offering, I'm sure, other courses, because there's a whole lot that he can really teach. We may not simply repeat the same course again and again. We'll come up with completely new courses in the future and so on. So my best answer is, don't count on it coming up again in the immediately following quarter, maybe sometime in the future. Okay, here's another question. Is Sanskrit classes available for middle schoolers? Yeah, they are available for middle schoolers. They can take, we have several of them doing so, but there'll be some level of engagement the child must have with the faculty, to a certain level of commitment, and whether the child will be supported by the parents and so on. So we can work with that, no problem. Okay, so here is a very detailed question. What is the difference between reciting, chanting all the Shanti mantras together, or chanting them individually at the beginning of the respective suktams? For example, chanting Sahana Bhavatu before chanting Narayana Upanishad, or Badram Karnemi before chanting Ganapati Atharva Shirsham. It's a very detailed question.
I don't know. Say it again, I will answer.
Yeah. Is there a difference between chanting all the Shanti mantras together or chanting them individually at the beginning of their respective suktams?
Yeah. See, the Shanti mantras can be recited even otherwise, because these are all great Vedic mantras with a lot of meaning. So like you were saying, before you recite the Atharva Sirsha, then the Badram Karinepi is part of the Atharva Sirsha Upanishad, so you recite that. Or when you are reciting Narayana Suktam, I think as you were saying, Om Sahana Bhavatu, it's fine. They are standalone, they are great. But in the traditional learning of the Upanishads, right? If you are somebody is a student who wants to study the Vedanta Shastra, namely the Upanishad, then these 10 Shanti mantras are collected together, and that is a sampradaya. There is no mandate. It is a sampradaya means a tradition. That's how it is coming along. So we just follow that.
Okay. I'm going to pick up a few questions randomly here. So is the plan to be able to develop slowly towards the study of the Upanishads after taking this class? Or will the Shanti mantras themselves inform us how to proceed beyond these mantras? So that's a question. Is there a well-defined plan? I would say no, there isn't a well-defined plan right now, but it could develop. Who knows, right? Swaminathan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, this won't tell you what Upanishads in which order study. So that is a, maybe towards the end of this class, I might make some suggestions for somebody who is interested in pursuing this seriously. There is an order of study, and all that will come in the discussion, but not in a formal way, unless, as Kalyanji is saying, future there are some courses offered for a structured study of the Vedanta Shastra.
Yeah. So here is a question. How much time should we expect to devote to this course beyond the 90 minutes per week of attendance in the class?
No, I would say it's up to you.
Okay, here's another one. What is the cost of the book or any other course materials in addition to the registration fee? It's a pretty low-priced book, isn't it?
Though those books are, the one book I think I had the price in the slide, it's $9.95. The other one, which is a Sanskrit booklet with the Shanti Mantras, must be under $10.
Yeah.
But you don't need to have them because I will put them in the PowerPoint slides. If they become part of your course curriculum or accessible to you in whatever way, as they were saying that these Zoom recordings may be available, then you need not even invest that money.
Yeah. Okay, so here is another question. Sorry. Question about the Gita Sanskritam. Prerequisite listed as admission to the Sanskrit Sanskritam program. Yeah, the learning Sanskritam through the Bhagavad Gita. That is, learning Sanskrit through the Bhagavad Gita is itself a standalone certificate program. Okay, in other words, it's not one course. It's an 8-course sequence. So when you get into that course, you're entering a 2-year program of study, and that's 8 successive quarters. So, and it's a standalone certificate program. Okay, so there is you're committing to the 8 quarters. I mean, I would generally say that if you just want to sample 1 quarter and then drop out, I mean, you can. Nobody is going to be able to prevent you from dropping out at the end of 1 quarter or 2 or 3, etc. But the course, the value of the program is in the whole 8 quarters, right? So when you commit to that kind of study, at the end of the 8 quarters, you really developed a level of proficiency that would be, really something you can be proud of for the rest of your life, really. Okay, and I mean, we want to encourage that kind of serious study in the university. Let's see. So here's an interesting question. Some people speak of Advaita Vedanta. Some people just speak of Vedanta. Is there also Advaita Vedanta?
Yeah, it's a good observation. Vedanta is Advaitam. Ekameva Advitiyam. That is the Upanishad statement. So what we say the reality, if you prefer that word, as I said, it's a science of realities of those 3 things, 3 corners of a triangle, if you imagine, the self, the Jagat, and the causal factor. And that all resolves into one absolute reality, which is non-dually one. The non-dually one reality is called Advaitam. So that is the Upanishad message. So that's why it's called. Sometimes you use that adjective, it is a redundant adjective, saying it's Advaita Vedanta, because Vedanta is Advaita. It's one absolute reality, which manifests in 3 ways. Okay. Then looking at, if this is clear, So you don't have to say Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta is Advaita. Why do you then say Advaita Vedanta? Why that parlance has come into practice, that you might ask. If you understand this picture of absolute reality, that is the view, then with reference to that, you can look at points of view. You can have points of view. For example, I'll give you a simple example, everyday experience. The sun is rising, the sun is setting. Our whole life is programmed or modulated according to the sunset and the sunrise. But in reality, the sun doesn't rise, doesn't set. According to science, now we know that. So that the sun doesn't set or rise is the view. That is the view. Then that the sun is rising because I see the rising sun is a point of view. When the view is clear, you can have points of view. So therefore, from the three corners of the triangle, then you look at from that point of view, from the corners of the triangle point of view, you could have an understanding of the reality, which is a subset of that absolute reality. Then you can use adjectives to describe it as Dvaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaitam. Then you are compelled to say, because the other two adjectives are used, you say Advaita Vedanta. But you don't have to do that. Vedanta is Advaita. So you don't need to have a tautology saying the same thing twice. So that adjective is not necessary.
Okay.
If I can just remind you to fill out the poll on if you're interested in enrolling and if you'd be willing to get a call from HUA to discuss. We have about 109 people who filled it out. Thank you for doing that. Kalyanji?
Yeah. So you can end the poll, actually. There is... So everybody who answered the poll, really thank you so much. Regarding the books, we will, we'll send you information about the books subsequently. No problem. Okay, we'll post it on the website also. Okay, so here are some other questions. Who is the teacher for the 8-quarter Bhagavad Gita course? Well, it is going to be Dr. Padma Kumar, who is he has a PhD in Sanskrit, and he's a very senior member of the Samskrita Bharati organization, very deep scholar. So he's going to be teaching it. And he'll be assisted by a couple of people in that course. One is by the name Dr. Lakshmi Sharma, also has a PhD in Sanskrit. And one more person, Srinath Chakravarti. Okay, let me see. How can I find the one and only one true God? Well, you have to work hard on it. It's an important pursuit. It's not going to come in a webinar as a casual answer to the question. It's a very deep pursuit, and obviously there are many methods. So the good thing about Hinduism is that there are many paths and many pursuits and many ways of engaging in that pursuit. Many yogas, so to speak. So there's lots of ways and methods. Do you have courses on Hindu rituals? If not, would be great to see such courses started on Hindu rituals. Yeah, it's a good comment. I mean, we will, in general, the performative traditions, like a ritual tradition, you can say it's a performative tradition, just like music and dance and so on. They are not so easily amenable to video-based distance education, but we will try and include them in the future. That's a good question. Will the Dasha-Shanti-Mantra be more of one-way lectures, or will it be different from having to sit through a YouTube pravachan about the Shanti Mantra? So I suppose the question is, if it's going to be just a one-way lecture, then I might as well learn it from a YouTube video. Why should I attend the class, right? I mean, I'll answer it generally, and then Swaminathan ji can add his perspective on this. What we have encouraged at Hindu University of America is that every class has an adequate amount of discussion, back and forth discussion. So, it is said that to learn effectively, there's an Upanishad mantra which says this, or I don't know, maybe it's Subhashitam. 1/4 of your learning can be attributed to the teacher, another quarter to your fellow students. A third quarter is your own self-study. The fourth quarter, time alone can teach you. Time alone, meaning experience and time and so on. So what we have observed is that the classroom setting with lots of people engaging with each other is very, very effective and valuable in learning, more so than just listening to a set of videos privately. Okay. There's a question on what are the 10 mantras, their captions. Well, I think those are all the content of the course itself. So we will get into those kinds of questions in the course. Why do we say 3 times Om Shanti Shanti Shanti? Well, that was explained very well by Swaminathan ji earlier in the webinar. You might have missed it, but it's about the Adi Dhaivika, Adi Bhautika, and Adhyatmika levels of obstructions to our pursuit of knowledge. Is there an equivalent? Here's a question. Is there an equivalent set of Dasha-Shanti-Mantras in Tamil or any other Indian language that we know of?
I don't know about other languages, but I don't think there is anything in Tamil.
Right.
This, as the title here is Vedic Shanti-Mantras. It's the Vedic tradition. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Shanti mantras can be recited monotonously, or does it have a specific style notes for recitation?
Some of them do. That's the swaras of the Vedic. See, a Veda, any Vedic mantra has to be chanted because they have swaras. Swaras means musical notes, like Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, Ityadi. I don't want to get into that, but there are swaras. So any Vedic mantra has to be chanted, and mantras in general, like Vishnu Sahasranam, whatever, they have to be recited, and a song has to be sung, a prose has to be read. So that is the niyama. So Vedic mantras have to be chanted. That's why the swaras come in. When there was a question whether we will learn to chant them, and I said, learning to chant the Vedic mantras is a separate pursuit by itself. So that has to be dealt with separately. But I will definitely chant them. You can chant, and then you learn on your own how to chant them properly.
Okay, here is a question. At what age should kids start formal education? That is in the form of learning shlokas and meanings for their education. So any thoughts on that, Swaminathan?
Generally, this is just my personal reflection and opinion, so you can take it for what it's worth. Learning takes place by osmosis, starting from the home. And it can start at any age, depending upon the child and whatever, right? So, but the child has to observe that in the home, there are certain practices called dinacharya. We have come a long way from all that, but dinacharya. Dinacharya means daily activities. The child has to see the mother or father praying, reciting slokas, whatever it is, dinacharya. Then by observation, the child gets that. Then you teach the child simple slokas, Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnu Ityadi. Then that osmosis, the child absorbs more. And that's how the learning continues. Learning has always to start, spiritual learning has to start at home. And that comes from Dinacharya.
So here is another question. What is the Sanskrit word for prayer? In other words, what do you call prayer in Sanskrit?
Prarthana.
Prarthana. Okay. So here's a question. The Shanti Mantra that you recited in the end falls into which category? For example, praying for a symbiotic life or something else. What is I don't know how to interpret the question, but it's about what is the mantra that you chanted in the end? Purnamada, I think.
The Purnamada mantra is one of the Shanti mantras,
Correct.
one of the 10 Shanti mantras. You please take the class, the course, and we will discuss that there.
Okay, so here's a question on, can you give an idea or guidance on the best of the Sanskrit learning options? Yeah, see, I think you should get in touch with us on that. We'll have a private conversation, put you in touch with some of the teachers. I think, that's the best way to get more information. Somebody saying, I guess it's a selective answering session. Yeah, it is. I'm selecting the questions. Okay, because some questions I think they are better answered in the class itself. So I'm sidestepping some questions. Will this class time overlap with the Sanskrit through Bhagavad Gita course? No, I don't think so. I think they are at 2 different days, so they should not. Yeah, you should look at the course outlines on the website, and I think Ankur, you can post the links for the Sanskrit courses also on the website. Okay.
Yeah, I linked to the Sanskrit area of studies twice. All the Sanskrit courses are listed there, and I also linked specifically to the beginner course, but I'll drop it in one more time.
Yeah.
Please navigate around the website. Look at our whole course offerings. There's a lot there. And as Kalyanji said, it's kind of quarter by quarter, depending on where we're at. The next quarter will offer different sets of courses.
And feel free to write to us. Somebody will talk to you in person, and I think that's the best way to kind of figure out where to begin and how to proceed, etc., etc. Can this course be attended from India? Yes, it can be attended from India. The timing will work. Yeah. Okay. There's a fellow called Dave here saying, how do I discover the one true God? We're not going to answer that question. Okay. Write a note to me separately on that. Okay, I think we are more or less done here. Okay, and I've looked at all the questions. We're more or less done. I think I'd like to end the webinar with with a thank you to Dr. Swaminathan. Thank you very much for joining us today. Okay, and thank you to all the participants who stuck around, asked the questions, and engaged with this conversation. We look forward to seeing you in the course if you can, and certainly do consider our Sanskrit programs as well. On that note, thank you all. Namaste.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Bye-bye.